Welcome to episode 109 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today's guest is someone I've admired for years, and not just because we've been longtime friends, but because Steve Suprenant is the kind of guy who throws the traditional idea of retirement right out the window. While most people slow down, Steve has ramped things up for a life full of adventure, creativity, and service. From officiating NCAA swim meets and crafting balloon animals, to RVing across the country and even mitigating pickleball noise, Steve proves that life after 50 can be more dynamic and fulfilling than ever before. Steve may have retired 4 times from a successful career as an electronics engineer with GE Healthcare, but in many ways, his life's most meaningful work began after that final farewell. Rather than settling into a life of leisure, Steve leaned into his passions and gifts to explore new avenues of purpose. To tell us more about what gives his life new meaning and purpose, please welcome Steve Suprenant to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Steve. This is an interview I've wanted to do for a long time. It's because you're not only been a longtime friend of mine, but you are a guy who redefined retirement as far as I'm concerned. In fact, it'd probably be a shorter podcast if we talked about the things you didn't do once you retired. When did you officially step away from your job?
My first retirement was in 2016.
Okay.
2016, I was 60. I just turned 62 and a half, 63, and I retired from GE Healthcare after 33 years. Was away from GE for about 6 months. They hired me back as a training instructor, teaching what I had done for the last 30 years. I stayed there for 2.5 years until COVID hit. We revamped the training sessions to be online instead of in person. Once that was complete, I retired a second time for about 4 months. GE called me back again and asked me if I would come back and help teach some additional engineers. So I went back a second time after retiring to teach some engineers. That went 10 months and I retired a third time. And then they called me back again for special projects. And I went back with the idea that I was just going to work on the special projects and ended up being there for about 7 months. And officially retired from GE at the end of 2024. It's my 4th retirement.
So sometime next month, you'll be getting that phone call that they've got something else.
Well, I already called it. I said, I'm not coming back. I've got some other things going on.
What kinds of equipment did you work on at GE? It was the big machines, correct?
Correct. So when I first started with GE, I was working on the smaller machines, nuclear medicine, ultrasound, some x-ray machines. But as things went along, I started working on what they call a PET scanner. And the primary function of the PET scanner is to detect cancer. And so I was working on when GE first started installing the new PET scanners. In fact, while I was in Madison, we had a PET scanner that didn't have a serial number on it. It was XXX. So it wasn't even a fully production ready machine. So we're working on that, installed a number of machines, first time types products in different places around the country. Worked on those machines for the last 20 years that I was with GE.
So you would travel around the country and help install those?
Yeah, we would travel around, install. If they were having problems that couldn't be fixed with the local engineers, I would get called and I would traveled out of country a couple of times to work on equipment in South America. But yeah, worked on a lot of different scanners.
What a fulfilling career, I'm sure. You were involved in a number of things before you retired or stepped away from GE, but now retirement has given you the opportunity to really pursue those. Let's talk about some of them, starting with the NCAA swim official. How did you get into swimming?
Both my wife and I were involved with swimming and swimming pools early on in our lives. Both of us were lifeguards, instructors. I managed a swimming pool in our little hometown for 4 years during college. While I was in college, the college that I attended had the IA, or small college championships, swimming championships. And I was involved with the behind the scenes, basically running the timing equipment. And that fit with my background as an electronic engineer. So it was a natural fit. And then once we finished college, got married, we had our daughter, and she got involved with swimming. And as she got involved with swimming, I stepped into the officiating role of officiating swim meets, officiating her swim meets and other ones, and worked my way up through club swimming, high school swimming, small college swimming, officiating, to the point where I was able to step into a role with Big Ten and officiate Big Ten swim meets, and then had the opportunity to apply and was accepted to officiate NCAA championship meets. So over the last 14 years, I've officiated at 11 NCAA championships, 8 Division I, some Division II, and some Division III.
What do you like about officiating so much?
I think it gives you the opportunity to see some of the most elite athletes in the world. These athletes that are in the swimming pool, whether it's NCAA or whether it's USA Swimming, these are the athletes that go to the Olympics, athletes breaking world records. And I might be in the lane officiating over that swimmer when they break a world record. That's really exciting.
I can imagine. Are you going to go into the Olympics or be able to officiate those?
It turns out that there are some restrictions on age, and I can understand they want to have younger officials, but they want to have officials that have a lot of experience. So they have most of the officials that are currently doing USA Swimming, NCAA Swimming are in their later ages, but they've been around for a long time. I've been involved with it for 32 years. But they take, if you can imagine, there's probably 4,000 to 5,000 officials that are USA Swimming qualified. And the Olympics takes 2 officials from the U.S.
Oh my. So not likely.
It's not likely. You have to be heavily involved with USA Swimming and the swimming background. Meets almost every single weekend, big meets. But just the opportunity to be able to work with NCAA. I've worked at the Olympic swim trials 2 different times. So you get to see these athletes right before they leave to go to the Olympics. So I feel very fortunate to be able to be involved with that.
You're still doing that now?
I'm still doing that now. The trials for last year were held in early 24. I was able to go down to Indianapolis and work at the Olympic trials down in Indianapolis. I'm trying to get ahead of the game and have my name out there for the trials that come up in 2028. They will probably be held in Indianapolis again, as the Olympics are going to be in LA in 2028. If I do the trials, I may just go out and watch the swimming events out in LA.
I had the opportunity to join you at a couple of swim meets in Wisconsin to help with the scoreboard and things like that. And the energy at those meets at the high school level was palpable. I can't imagine what it would be like for a Big Ten championship meet.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, the energy that the athletes have. Some of them are swimming basically individually, but when they swim for their college or their university, it's a full team event. It's full on.
That's neat. Another thing you had done before retiring, but really jumped into it even more afterwards, was tying balloons into weird animal shapes. What brought you into that kind of activity?
It's an interesting story because early on, my wife was working full time. She made a decision that she wanted to retire, and we were fortunate enough to be able to let her do that. And so she had retired. We were doing some bike riding over the summer, and we came along a trail on the 4th of July coming into a little town. And there were some kids throwing fireworks, and it startled her, and her bike hit mine. She crashed. She broke her knee. And so she was incapacitated for a little while, just sitting around waiting for her knee to heal. And I said, you need to do something. You can't just keep not doing anything. Now you're retired, you can do anything you want. And so we talked about it. She said, I'm an artist. Why don't I try doing face painting? And she started at church doing some face painting. It got busier. We started up a business with her face painting for birthdays and parties and events. And we were finding that the client wanted additional services. So 2 face painters, or a face painter and a balloon twister, or a face painter and a caricature artist. So if we needed to have a second artist, we always had to hire somebody to work with her. And as we started to realize that the balloon twisting was something that a lot of people wanted to do, and we were paying for somebody, I said, you know what? I'm an engineer. I can figure that out. I got into it about 4 years after she started doing her face painting. Like I said, I'm an engineer, so I designed and built my own equipment to blow up the balloons, and just started learning how to do it, go to seminars, go to conferences, work with other balloon twisters. So for the last 7 years, my wife and I have had this business that we've done together of entertaining kids primarily, but entertaining people who will want to have fun at a birthday party, at an event, whatever.
You had some campgrounds even hire you to come in, gave you a place to stay for a weekend so that you could participate in their big festivals. So this is something seasoned citizens might be able to do to fund their travels.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. We were traveling in our trailer, and we bring our equipment with us, her face painting and my balloons. And we would go to the owner of the campground or the manager of the campground and say, would it be okay if we did face painting and balloon twisting? We won't charge you. We'll just do it for tips. And we would set up outside the office, and people would come and get their face painted and get balloons. And we had one site that we stopped at that said, wow, we've never had so many kids show up for something. Would you be interested in coming back when we open the campground? And we said, sure. And they said, we'll pay for your sites while you're here. And so we said, okay. So we've gone to a site up in Door County. I think this will be our 4th year in a row that we've gone up for their Halloween celebration in October. We go up for 4 or 5 days. We spend 4 or 5 hours on one day painting and doing balloons during their big Halloween celebration. So it's been a lot of fun. See all the costumes and all of the things going on, to be able to do balloons for the kids and get their faces painted.
If somebody was really good at twisting balloons like that and they were doing it for tips, how much would they typically make?
So I don't know the persons directly, but the people that we've talked to that have done balloon twisting for a long time have shared that there have been medical students and lawyers while they're going through school, so while they're in the undergrad, that did balloon twisting, that came out of college with their law degree or their medical degree and no bills for college. They paid for their entire college education balloon twisting.
That's great. How do you come up with the designs?
You can make up your own, but it's usually you go on the internet and you find something that people are interested in. You look at the current trends for the kids today, what's happening with the comics and the cartoons and the shows that are on the internet and TV. And invariably, you'll find an animal or creature or something that they're looking for, and you find the design for it and you practice.
Did you ever design one for twist a balloon into a Bucky Badger or anything like that?
I have not done a Bucky Badger balloon. I know some people who have done that, and doing it a first time it would probably take a couple hours because you're experimenting. You're trying to figure out how it looks. You pop a lot of balloons. But it becomes, once you do it a few times, it becomes a little bit easier to do. When I first started, it would take 3, 4, 5 minutes to do something simple. And now I can do something simple in about 1.5 to 2 minutes.
Okay. What's your favorite design?
It's a design that I don't know that I perfected it, but I use it a lot. And the young guys really like it a lot. It's a lightsaber. And so when I tell them I'm going to make a lightsaber, I tell them I'm going to put some noise in it. I said, it's not popping. It's not going to pop, but there'll be noise in it. So I make sure that they see me put the noise in it. And of course, there's nothing you put in it. It's just the way that you twist the balloon. That when you swipe it back and forth, it makes a lightsaber noise.
Really?
And everybody is just astounded that here you've got 2 balloons and they're making noise and you don't know how you did it. So that's one of my most favorite ones.
That would be fun to do. How long have you been RVing?
We started RVing probably about 8 years ago.
Okay.
When we first got married, we camped a lot and we were doing a lot of tent camping and backpacking. And then we had our daughter and we did a little more tent camping, but we stopped doing that. And we hadn't camped for quite a while. And as Julie retired and I was retiring, we said let's give this RVing a try. Let's see if we could get into it, if we'd like it. So we actually rented a trailer and a couple times and pulled it around to a couple different spots and really enjoyed it and said we could do this. And so took the rental back and ended up finding a smaller trailer. We bought that, had that for 5 years. And Julie said, I'd like to keep doing this, but I'd like to see if we could get a little more space in the kitchen area, a little more space around the bedroom area so that you're not having to crawl over things. And so I found the camper, the trailer that had all those things, came home and told her, I bought a camper. Now I got to buy a truck. So we had to go and get a truck. And so we were able to do that. And so now we're on our second travel trailer. And this is probably going to be the one that we hang on to. We've got storage for this one. We had storage for the other one, but this one fits with 1 inch to spare in the back and 1 inch to spare in the front to close the door. So I can't get any bigger.
Can't get any bigger. Oh, what kind did you get?
We have a bumper pull, 28.5-foot Crossroads Sunset Trails camper. Got 2 slide outs, very nice area for the kitchen area and the recreation area with the recliners and TV and stuff. So very comfortable.
You just hauled it down to Florida.
And we hauled it down to Florida. It was interesting. We decided we were going to come down. We planned on coming down January through March and made all the arrangements. And then in early fall, we had some friends of ours say, let's go back to Mexico. We've been to Mexico a couple of times with them. So we said, okay, we'll go with you, but we got to figure out what to do with the trailer. So we pulled it down to Florida. We put it in storage for February, went to Mexico, pulled it out of storage and put it back on the RV resort for the month of March. So we're here through the end of March.
What other places have you visited with your RV?
We've been down to Texas, down to the Galveston area, down to Austin, Texas. We've gone to Colorado a number of times. A couple of years ago, we were able to go down to Utah and go to Arches National Park and travel out there. Where else? Oh yeah, we've gone down to Branson a couple of times.
Okay.
So
can we expect you in Arizona anytime soon?
We actually are planning on coming to Arizona in 27.
Okay.
This summer, we're going to be out in Colorado for a family reunion. In 26, we're probably going to be back down in Florida. So it could be late 26 or early 27 when we head down towards Arizona. My sister lives in Tucson.
Okay. It's funny that you have to plan so far in advance that you're making travel schedules for 2027 here in early 2025.
I guess that's what happens when you're retired. You start planning your schedules out farther, but you still have a lot of freedom to run around.
I guess. What do you like most about RVing?
We've been able to meet some unbelievable friends that we've started to interact with and travel with. You haven't talked about this yet, but I'm going to bring it up. We started playing pickleball a couple of years ago, and pickleball is a very social interaction group. Wherever you get on the pickleball court and you play with them a couple times and you become friends with them. And so we've been traveling the last 2 years to locations that have pickleball courts. And we're at a resort right now that's got 10 pickleball courts. We can go and play pickleball almost every day if we want to. And we've been introduced to some wonderful people that we're in communication with all the time now. So RVing has allowed us to do that.
Okay. So you're officially retired now that you've taken up pickleball, right?
Yeah. So it's one of the questions you had on your thing was, what have you learned from all of this? And what I've learned is I'm too busy. And you know that. You've seen me for the last 30 some odd years. I'm busy. So we started playing pickleball. I started playing pickleball about 2.5 to 3 years ago. My wife started playing about 2 years ago. And just as I've officiated other things, swimming, track, cross country, I am now officiating pickleball. And we've been traveling for pickleball tournaments that I officiate. Yeah, it's just another hobby that has taken up a little more time.
So this one you're playing pickleball and officiating it.
Correct. So we don't play in tournaments, but we play for fun, but I officiate in tournaments.
And then you just got a job.
So I'm working at a tournament in Chicago as a pickleball official, and another official comes up to me in conversation. What did you do in your past life before you started doing this? And I said, I'm an engineer. And he said, what kind of engineer? And I said, I'm an electronic engineer. And he said, oh, I might have an opportunity for you. And I said, I'll always listen. I don't have to accept anything, but I'll always listen. And he said, I have a pickleball sound mitigation company that is doing assessments for homeowners, for cities, for communities, tennis
centers.
Clubs. Yeah. And so I got involved with pickleball sound mitigation, and we will get a client. They will ask to have us assess the sound levels coming from the pickleball courts that could impact the residents around or the people that are around the courts. And then we give recommendations on what they can do to minimize the noise. Little known fact, and I didn't know it, but the level of sound that happens when you hit a pickleball really hard, like an overhead smash, is 108 decibels, which is almost jet engine sound.
What?
Yes. It's almost jet engine sound. Now, it's only a tenth of a second. It's not like a jet engine taking off, but it's that level for a tenth of a second. And so that volume travels. And so it's annoying. And so we do the assessment and we provide recommendations for them to minimize the sound coming off the pickleball courts. It could be some type of mitigation on the fences that stops the sound. Could be recommending certain types of paddles that are not as loud, or recommending certain types of balls that are not as loud, or some combination of all of those to reduce the sound.
Do other sports have to do this too, like tennis? Would they do that kind of noise mitigation?
There could be some, but the frequency range of the pickleball is right in the middle of human auditory range. And so it seems to be a little bit of more of an annoyance than the tennis rackets. It's been interesting. Some of the clients have said, will it reduce the sound of the players yelling and screaming because they're so excited or they're worked up, they're yelling, and we say, we'll help, but there's not a lot we can do to keep them from yelling.
We met originally at church, and you have always been actively involved in your church. I understand you are an elder in training now at the church that you're attending.
Yeah. So you and I go back somewhere around 30 years. And I was an elder or in leadership at the church that we first met at, was involved with some of the technical things because of my background. After leaving there, was involved with another church and the technical aspect, was asked to be considered as a leader or an elder for that group. I declined that because we had been there for a very short time, and I felt like I needed to get more involved or be there a little bit longer to understand the culture. And again, during that time frame, COVID hit. Most churches shut down and started doing online. We ended up finding a church in Madison that was still meeting in person, and that was a factor for us in starting to attend Doxa Church in Madison. And after being there and starting to get involved with that, I was asked to go through an elders in training or a training program for leadership. And I'm currently in that. Hopefully, as we finish up and we get back to Wisconsin here at the end of March, there may be some things that happen that I will be affirmed as an elder. If not, I'll still continue to stay in leadership and serve as we've been doing the last 30 years.
Okay. It's quite the honor to be considered an elder, especially for a church that size.
Yeah, it's a growing church. And it was funny because when the first Sunday that we were there, almost 3 years ago, we walked in and there was nobody older than us. We were the oldest couple there. And we had another couple sit down in front of us that was close to our age, and we became friends with them. But when we talked to the lead senior pastor, we said, we don't know if we're supposed to be here. We're a little bit old. And he said, no, we've been praying for mature adults to come into our church. And it has worked. God has brought a lot of wonderful people into Doxa Church. So it's been a real honor to be there.
I love it when churches will utilize the skill, talent, and abilities of older people. I think too many of them usher them into separate, segregated groups and say, okay, you're the older group, go play bingo, or whatever the case might be, rather than incorporating them into church life where they can serve as the true sages of the church.
It's been really rewarding. Been asked to mentor some young men and asked to be accountable with other guys. And it's just been a real honor to be able to see people grow and mature.
That's neat. Yep. If you could turn the clock back, is there anything that you would do differently?
We've got one daughter. We've talked about when we first got married, we didn't know if we were going to have any kids. We were blessed to have a daughter. We didn't know if we were going to have any other kids after that. We had some starts and stops, but we've got one daughter. And whether or not having more kids would be good or not, I don't know. I don't have any regrets having only one. We've been able to spend a lot of time focused on her and provide and go through the ups and downs of being a parent, as everybody does. I think probably the one regret, and my wife knows this, is that when I first started with GE, before I was a believer, before I was a Christian, work was everything. Everything was focused on work. All the hours were on work. No time for marriage, no time for my daughter. And when things changed at work and I changed from being a manager to just being a support engineer, it freed up a lot of my hours. And so the thing I probably regret the most is that the time that I missed being involved with them, where I was more focused on work, trying to climb up the ladder, trying to make more money, trying to get a better position, until I got to the point where I became a Christian and realized that I didn't need to climb up to have people think I was good. I was good enough the way I was. And to change my attitude from striving to reach the top to being content where I was, and still doing what I could to the best of my ability, but that's not the focus, of being content.
Right. It's one thing to have the boss be really pleased with you, and another thing to have your daughter be really pleased with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. But your one daughter gave you one granddaughter. So she is
did.
I can imagine, considerably spoiled at this stage.
She has a lot of attention on her, both by our daughter and by us. She's very active. We get a chance to see her in her different activities, whether it's Girl Scouts or theater or dance or Pom Squad or, there's a lot of stuff.
You're going to start officiating pom meets now?
I don't know that would go over very well, but yeah, I'd have to figure out the routines.
I can imagine. So do you have any advice for people over 50 who might be struggling with what to do to give their life more meaning?
I don't know that it's necessarily people over 50, because I tell this to a lot of people, and some of them are over 50 and some of them aren't. But the one thing that I've been really trying to live by the last 15 years or so is to teach one thing and to learn one thing every day. Teach one thing and learn one thing every day. Because if you're constantly learning and you're able to share what you've learned with others, you just feel like you just feel better. I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'm almost 71 and I'm still learning every day. And hopefully, because of my maturity, I can teach something to someone every day. And if I take that perspective that I'm humble enough to learn, I'm not so proud that I'm going to hold it over somebody, but I want to teach something as well.
When you're teaching, you've got to learn it really well, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So you're taking learning to the next level.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you like learning about or teaching that might not be involved in the things that you're doing to make money?
Some of it is just teaching people to listen. Sometimes you go someplace and you might have to ask the right question to get them to respond, and you ask them the question that forces them to listen a little bit more. Some of it's just life skill learning, but a lot of it is based on my past experience with my work, whether it was in engineering or now with balloons or with officiating or now with pickleball. I'm always learning and I'm always finding some little thing that I can teach from all of that past experience.
That's neat. How can people connect with you if they'd like to stay in touch or get to know you a little better?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook under Steve Suprenant, Surprenant. There's not a whole lot of Suprenants out there, so we're not too hard to find. You can always reach out to our business, our entertainment business is paintmyface.net. We have connections on there. And one of my email addresses that I would share is slsurp22@gmail.com.
Are you also on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. Yep.
Okay.
And I've actually updated that recently with information about pickleball sound mitigation.
Super. Thank you very much for joining me today and for sharing this story. It's incredible how much you're doing at a time when most people are telling you it's time to slow down. So thank you for setting a positive example for the rest of us.
Thanks, Greg. It was great to see you again.
I really enjoyed my interview with Steve Suprenant. He sets a high bar for retirees by showing it is possible for them to have impact in ways they never thought about. For example, today he officiates at NCAA swimming events and national pickleball tournaments. That gives him front row access to some of the most elite athletes in the world. It's a role that combines his technical expertise with his love of sports. Now as a sound mitigation consultant for pickleball courts, Steve applies his engineering background in a surprising new way by helping communities balance the fun of the game with peace for nearby residents. Alongside his wife Julie, Steve also runs a balloon twisting and face painting business, bringing joy to children at parties, festivals, and campgrounds across the country. He's transformed his fun-filled activity into a shared creative outlet and an innovative way to fund their travels in their RV. Their seasonal trips have taken them across Texas, Utah, Colorado, and Florida, where he's always building friendships and creating memories along the way. Perhaps most inspiring is Steve's commitment to faith and service. As an elder in training at his church, he's mentoring younger men and providing leadership in a growing congregation. His perspective on aging is refreshing. He sees it not as an end, but as an open door to continue teaching, learning, and contributing. Steve's motto is to teach one thing and learn one thing every day, and it guides everything he does. At nearly 71, he's still discovering new passions, serving others, and showing all of us that purpose doesn't retire when we do. It simply shifts to something even richer. People can connect with Steve on Facebook or through their entertainment business at www.paintmyface.net. If Steve's story inspired you, please consider sharing this episode with a friend who's wondering what might be the next move for his or her life. Because as Steve proves, the best chapters might be the ones you haven't written yet. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.